Something unthinkable is unfolding. As of 2025, the United States has started drawing the line more boldly than ever before. In a move that's triggering global outrage, Washington is tightening its grip on Asian countries through sweeping visa restrictions and diplomatic freezes. But this isn't just about policy, it's about perception. And for millions of people from across Asia, the message is clear. You're no longer welcome here. This video dives deep into 10 Asian countries now facing unprecedented cold shoulders from the US. Some of them are rivals, others once considered partners. But all of them are now part of a list America doesn't want to talk about. And wait until you see who ranks number 1. That one will leave you speechless. Before we move, smash that like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Number 10. North Korea. North Korea's strained relationship with the United States is nothing new. But in 2025, tensions escalated into outright exclusion. Following a new round of U.S. sanctions, Washington imposed a complete freeze on visa processing for North Korean citizens. Not just government officials, but humanitarian workers and students too. According to a statement published by KCNA, the official North Korean news agency, Pyongyang accused the U.S. of sabotaging peace opportunities and promoting double standards. North Korea, in return, declared that all American diplomats and aid organizations operating within the country would be expelled. This hardline stance has effectively erased what little civilian or educational contact remained between the two nations. The message from Washington? Engagement is off the table. The risk of escalation, according to experts, is at its highest since the Trump-Kim summit era collapsed. Whether you agree or not, North Korea is no longer just isolated by choice. It's now being cut off by design. And it only gets more intense from here. The next country on this list shares a long history of war and recovery with America. But today, they're being shown the door. Number 9. Afghanistan. Once a central partner in America's longest war, Afghanistan now finds itself at the cold edge of U.S. immigration and diplomatic policy. In 2025, the United States imposed strict visa restrictions on Afghan officials, citing corruption, human rights concerns, and national security risks. But for thousands of Afghan families hoping for a fresh start in America, the message felt far more personal. According to a January 2025 report from Tula News, Afghans applying for U.S. visas, even those who once worked with American forces, are facing indefinite delays, mass denials, and in some cases, outright bans. The Trump administration maintains the policy targets only a specific group of political elites. But in reality, it's ordinary Afghans who are paying the price. The Afghan government responded with sharp criticism, accusing the U.S. of abandoning its moral responsibility. As violence escalates and regional instability grows, Afghan citizens trying to flee persecution are left in limbo. A former interpreter interviewed by Tula News put it bluntly, "They used us when it suited them. Now we're not welcome." In a country where survival often hinges on global partnerships, this shift has left deep scars, both diplomatic and deeply personal. Number 8. Russia. While Russia isn't traditionally considered part of Asia in the Western imagination, its massive Asian territory and regional influence make its place on this list undeniable. And in 2025, U.S.-Russia relations are colder than ever. Following Moscow's renewed aggression in Eastern Europe and alleged cyber interference in U.S. infrastructure, the U.S. government has expanded its visa bans to include dozens of Russian officials, business elites, and their families. But the fallout has gone far beyond government circles. Ordinary Russian citizens now face increased scrutiny, longer wait times, and widespread visa denials when trying to enter the United States. Travel agencies in Moscow report a 61% drop in U.S.-bound bookings compared to early 2024. American universities, once popular among Russian students, are seeing record-level withdrawals and admission declines. According to a report from RT, even scientific and academic exchanges have been quietly frozen. While Washington says these measures are necessary for national security, Russian media calls it a new Iron Curtain. For millions of Russians hoping to travel, study, or reconnect with family in America, the door is closing, and it may not reopen anytime soon. Number 7. Myanmar. The United States has all but slammed the door shut on Myanmar in recent years, and 2025 made it official. Following the 2021 military coup and continued human rights abuses, Washington expanded its sanctions targeting Myanmar's junta leaders, state enterprises, and defense companies. But the crackdown hasn't stopped there. In 2025, visa restrictions tightened even further, with U.S. immigration officials flagging most Myanmar applicants for extensive background checks, effectively freezing approval rates. The message is clear. Myanmar's military-led government has crossed a line. Humanitarian organizations have also reported delays in visas for aid workers, a chilling signal that even neutral actors from Myanmar face increasing suspicion. What's more, Myanmar's inclusion on the U.S. Treasury's sanctions list has spooked banks and travel services, making it nearly impossible for ordinary citizens to get flights, accommodations, or transactions approved for U.S. travel. Once a quiet presence in U.S. immigration flows, Myanmar has now become a cautionary tale of what happens when diplomatic bridges collapse. Number 6. Pakistan. Tensions between the United States and Pakistan have always run hot and cold, but in 2025 they hit a new low. The Trump administration enacted targeted visa restrictions against Pakistani officials, citing concerns over democratic backsliding, judicial suppression, and alleged support for extremist networks. Islamabad didn't take the news lightly. Pakistani leaders called the move unjustified and politically motivated. While the sanctions were focused on government officials, the ripple effects quickly spread to civilians. U.S. student visas for Pakistani nationals dropped by 36% compared to the previous year. Business travel approvals were down nearly 42%, according to consular records. This has caused widespread frustration in Pakistan's tech and academic sectors, which rely heavily on U.S. collaboration. To make matters worse, social media campaigns in Pakistan calling for reciprocal travel bans gained traction, turning an already tense situation into a tit-for-tat standoff. Flights to major U.S. cities from Islamabad and Lahore have seen increased cancellations and empty seats, not because of capacity, but because of disillusionment. Pakistan may not be officially banned yet, but it's already feeling the squeeze of a diplomatic freeze. Number 5. South Korea. No one expected to see South Korea on this list, a longtime U.S. ally, tech partner, and cultural bridge between East and West. But in 2025, even Seoul isn't safe from America's shifting immigration and security policies. The controversy erupted when a leaked memo from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security labeled South Korea as a visa integrity risk zone, following a sharp rise in overstays from tech sector employees. Despite Seoul's strong objections, the U.S. quietly added new administrative delays and background checks on South Korean work visa applicants. The reaction was swift. South Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs publicly denounced the move, calling it a breach of trust. Tech giants like Samsung and Hyundai, both with significant U.S. operations, warned of paused relocations and joint projects. In a poll by the Korea Herald, 68% of South Koreans viewed the visa clampdown as a political insult rather than a policy decision. The damage isn't just diplomatic. South Korean student enrollment at U.S. universities dropped 22% year-over-year, and several cultural exchange programs have been suspended. If the United States can turn cold toward a nation it once hailed as a model ally, what does that say to the rest of Asia? Number 4. China. China's strained relationship with the United States is nothing new. But in 2025 it took a darker, more personal turn. The U.S. State Department imposed sweeping visa restrictions on Chinese officials, scholars, and tech executives in retaliation for alleged espionage and human rights violations. Beijing hit back, slamming the restrictions as Cold War tactics. Chinese news outlets warned citizens against studying in or traveling to the U.S., citing arbitrary detentions and rising anti-Asian hate crimes. The number of Chinese students in the U.S. fell by over 30% within just one academic year. Tourism has collapsed. Flights between Beijing and New York, once packed year-round, are now running at half capacity. Major U.S. retailers and universities are reporting revenue losses tied directly to the Chinese exodus. And it goes deeper. American tech companies that once relied on Chinese partners for hardware supply and R&D are watching deals dry up. Washington may claim it's a matter of national security, but to many in China, it's a declaration that they're no longer welcome. This isn't just a diplomatic freeze, it's an economic and cultural decoupling in real time. Number 3. Bangladesh. Bangladesh may not be the first country that comes to mind when discussing U.S. foreign policy flashpoints, but in 2025 it's become a surprisingly volatile hotspot. The Trump administration has imposed targeted visa restrictions on key Bangladeshi political and security officials, citing a worrying pattern of human rights violations, including the suppression of opposition voices and press freedom in the wake of the 2024 elections. For a country once seen as a dependable ally in South Asia, This sudden freeze has sent diplomatic shockwaves through both Washington and Dhaka. The response from Bangladesh was anything but quiet. The government publicly denounced the U.S. action, calling it a blatant interference in domestic affairs. Crowds flooded the streets of Dhaka, chanting anti-American slogans and waving signs that read, "Hands off Bangladesh," and "No to double standards." At the heart of the uproar lies a growing belief among many Bangladeshis that the U.S. applies its democracy and human rights rhetoric selectively, turning a blind eye when convenient, but pouncing when politically advantageous. The fallout isn't just symbolic. Bilateral trade is taking a hit, especially in the textile sector, which had long been a pillar of cooperation between the two nations. American retailers, once reliant on Bangladeshi garment exports, are reportedly pausing contracts, citing regulatory uncertainty. In parallel, Bangladeshi American communities in places like New York, Michigan, and California are reporting delays in visa processing, higher rejection rates, and heightened scrutiny at consulates. Travel between the two countries is also slowing down. Airlines have reduced flight frequency as demand dips sharply. Visa approval rates for Bangladeshi nationals have plummeted, with rejection rates reportedly spiking 60% compared to 2023. Academic and cultural exchanges are suffering, and several planned investment forums between the two governments have been indefinitely postponed. Bangladesh may not wield the global influence of China or India, but losing its trust at such a pivotal moment in regional politics could cost the U.S. dearly. It's a small nation with growing strategic importance, and Washington's approach is pushing it further from the American orbit. For a young democracy navigating internal turbulence, the message from the U.S. feels less like support and more like abandonment. Number 2. India. India and the United States have long referred to each other as natural partners, bonded by democratic values and mutual geopolitical interests. But that narrative is crumbling fast. In a shocking development, President Trump grouped India with countries he labeled as xenophobic, sparking outrage across the Indian political spectrum. For a nation that prides itself on its pluralistic identity and democratic resilience, the comparison stung deeply. The Indian government wasted no time in hitting back. Officials from Prime Minister Modi's administration condemned the remarks as unfounded, offensive, and diplomatically irresponsible. Foreign Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar took to international forums to defend India's democratic integrity, while Indian media exploded with commentary accusing the U.S. of hypocrisy. Prominent news anchors and columnists questioned whether Washington had ever respected India as a sovereign equal, or merely viewed it as a pawn in its rivalry with China. But this wasn't just rhetorical sparring. Concrete policy shifts followed. Indian immigration applicants, particularly students and skilled workers, began facing increased scrutiny at U.S. embassies. In some cities, rejection rates have more than doubled compared to 2023. American universities are already reporting a sharp decline in Indian student applications, a demographic that has historically formed the largest share of international enrollees. Indian tech giants, too, are rethinking their expansion strategies, increasingly favoring Europe, Southeast Asia, and Australia over the United States. Online, the backlash is gaining momentum. Hashtags like #BoycottUSA, #RespectIndia, and #NoVisa. For Indians have trended on Indian social media, fueled by popular influencers and even some members of parliament. Meanwhile, Indian consumers are calling for boycotts of American brands, everything from fast food chains to streaming services. U.S. businesses operating in India are growing nervous, with several reportedly pausing ad campaigns to avoid backlash. For Washington, this rift with India couldn't come at a worse time. The Indo-Pacific strategy, which hinges on Indian cooperation to counterbalance China's growing assertiveness, now faces uncertainty. What was once touted as a rock-solid alliance is starting to feel fragile and transactional. If the U.S. cannot maintain goodwill with its most crucial democratic partner in Asia, it risks unraveling its entire regional strategy, with long-term consequences that extend far beyond diplomacy. Number 1. Japan. No one expected Japan to land here, a key ally, a longtime partner, and yet in 2025, even Japan is finding itself entangled in tensions with the United States, not over war, trade, or military strategy, but over something far more symbolic: words. For a country so often praised for its measured diplomacy, Japan's response was swift and firm. Japanese officials didn't merely express disappointment. They issued formal rebukes, stating the president's comments were a deep mischaracterization of Japan's culturally grounded immigration stance. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida stood before national media, emphasizing Japan's sovereign right to manage its borders according to domestic consensus, not foreign pressure. The sentiment echoed widely across Japanese society, igniting a wave of disapproval from citizens who felt unfairly targeted. And the repercussions have gone well beyond press conferences. A recent Mainichi Shimbun poll revealed that 52% of Japanese citizens now view the United States less favorably than just a year ago, the steepest year-over-year drop in over a decade. Online travel communities began trending hashtags discouraging trips to the U.S., while cultural influencers and TV pundits criticized what they saw as Washington's arrogance. Meanwhile, some of Japan's most promising tech firms are re-evaluating collaborations with American partners, eyeing alternative hubs in Europe and Southeast Asia. What once felt like an unbreakable alliance now seems fragile. The cracks are visible, not in military treaties, but in mutual respect and public sentiment. And when one of your closest allies starts to question your values, it sends a chilling signal to the rest of the world. This list isn't about enemies. It's about allies, trusted partners, nations that once stood shoulder to shoulder with the United States, now questioning whether that relationship still serves their best interests. From North Korea to Japan, the countries featured in this countdown aren't merely reacting to new visa restrictions or foreign policy pivots. They're responding to something far more existential: the feeling that the America they once admired is slipping away. The warmth, the opportunity, the promise, all clouded by uncertainty, inconsistency, and a growing perception of indifference. The U.S. isn't just losing visitors or investments, it's forfeiting goodwill, influence, soft power that once gave it unmatched leverage across the globe. And in today's hyper-competitive, multipolar world, that kind of erosion isn't just symbolic, it's strategic. Because when allies feel ignored, slighted, or misunderstood, they don't just step back, they look elsewhere. So here's the hard question. If even America's most loyal partners are now reconsidering their ties, who will still stand with it when the stakes are highest? Is this a passing storm or the beginning of a new diplomatic reality? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think this is a temporary fallout or a signal of long-term change? Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because at Globe Discoveries, we're just getting started uncovering what's really happening in today's shifting global landscape.